Toronto Blue Jays offseason moves have begun. Couple of players, a coach has been reassigned, so the ball is starting to roll right here for the Toronto Blue Jays, and you got to believe that plenty more is to come. But this is just a start, and it's a pretty good start to their offseason, so we'll break that down and much more on this episode of Jays Digest. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, before we get into this video is sponsored by Rentals.ca. Nick and I are super excited to continue our partnership alongside Rentals.ca. Now, the Blue Jays have started to make moves. It's the official first day of the offseason, and they're starting to make moves. The Jays fans have been asking for moves, but if it's time for a move in your life, in your personal life, use Rentals.ca because they make that move so much easier. They make that transition a lot smoother for you. So use Rentals.ca if it's time to move for you in your personal life.
Yeah, and the best part is the website is super clean, super easy to use. You can pinpoint exactly on the map where you may want to find your future apartment. So check them out in this description and the pinned comment because me and Peter have both, used them. We both have experience with them and they are the best out there. So if it's time to make a move in your life like the Jays are making moves now, make sure to check that out. Thank you guys to them as well. All right, Peter, let's just get right into it. Speaking of moves, there's a lot of moves going on here, and there's a lot of things that happened yesterday because it was the first official day of the offseason, so stuff can start to happen. Contracts can start to go down, and there's a lot. So this is obviously the Jay Jackson stuff, but let's start with the fun stuff here. So Dave Hudgin has been reassigned away from the big league club. We don't know the exact location he is yet, but already the changes have started in Toronto where Dave Hudgin, the club's major league hitting strategist, is being reassigned elsewhere in the organization. Meaning that, and when I was reading, he won't be in the dugout anymore as their hitting strategist, which, Peter, I'm pretty happy about. Guillermo Martinez stays on for the time being. And Chadavidi posted an article about it if you want to read more. It says, as the offseason begins, changes are already happened. He has been reassigned. We don't know exactly where yet. However, what we do know is that, he's not our hitting strategist anymore. Me and Peter were clamoring about this move, hoping that it would happen. We also thought Guillermo Martinez might be one that, would be potentially leaving. But it starts with Dave Hudgin. Who knows where the other ones are going to come from, but I'm happy. He didn't have a very, very good impact. At least it didn't seem like it last year, and the Jays tend to agree.
Yeah, well, also he had a couple of incidents where it just didn't look good. A lot of bad optic situations for Dave Hudgin. He was caught tweeting 4 minutes before the first pitch of a baseball game. That can't be happening, especially not for a guy who's in an analytical role like that one. Not for a guy that's charged with, being a strategist on the team and helping you out in your approach at the plate. So you could tell that his focus was elsewhere at times throughout the season. Didn't really help the Blue Jay hitters either. I think they got worse as the season rolled along. They had some stretches earlier in the year where they were hitting well and hitting for power, and then as the season rolled along, that power was just totally sapped out of their bats, and it didn't look like a typical Blue Jays team. I know they were built a little bit differently than in years past, but the nucleus, their offense, still kind of remained the same. I know they got rid of a couple of bats there in Teoscar Hernandez and Lourdes Gurriel Jr., but they still had those power elements. They still had those guys that had a ton of success at the major league level, and I'm looking right at Bo, Vladdy, and Springer, and those guys just didn't perform to the level that they were expected to, and you could even say the same for most of the other hitters that were in that lineup. So yeah, something wasn't right. It seemed to be a team-wide problem as well, which in my estimation seems to be something coming from the top. So if it's everyone that's struggling as opposed to a couple of guys, there's got to be a team philosophy that is just not clicking right now, and you got to look squarely at Dave Hudgin and Guillermo Martinez. I don't know how long Guillermo Martinez is going to last, but the one argument that I do make for him is that he was there in 2021 when the offense was the best in all of baseball. He was there in previous years as well, and he helped unlock the potential of certain Blue Jay hitters. Now, Dave Hudgin, I'm not sure exactly what he's contributed over the course of the past few seasons here, but I'm glad that the Blue Jays nipped it in the bud, and they're going to be moving in a different direction.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind that they didn't fire him. They just moved him elsewhere, and that's about as it seems like a Ross Atkins decision and an organizational decision. They don't make major headlines by firing their hitting coach. They just reassign him elsewhere. But like you said, there is a good chance that Guillermo stays on. He lives on for now because of what you said in 2021. Even the offense was solid in previous years, 2020. I'm not sure exactly when he got there, but the point was he's seen success under the team. especially in 2021, like you said. But Dave Hudgens, just a bad year last year, and they needed to make a change to the hitting department just out of principle and out of premise because of how many players underperformed. And Dave Hudgens would be the guy, although it didn't really come to my mind, thinking about it over the past couple weeks. So it makes total sense that they at least start with Dave Hudgens and maybe move down the pecking order depending on where it goes. Or maybe this will be the only change to the hitting staff. Who knows? But at the very, very least, Peter, they did not run it back with the same hitting staff, which is good. They're at least changing something, getting a new eyes in, so that's good. But Peter, let's move on to another move because we have two more to go over here. We'll quickly touch on this one.
Yeah, just one more thing. One more thing, though, on Dave Hudgens. I think it'll be beneficial for the Blue Jays to not even look for a replacement when it comes to Hudgens. You can't have too many guys in there. I know that Don Mattingly was in the mix as well when it came to hitting strategy, and he's had some choice words on how you should approach hitting the baseball. He said, I don't like the launch angle. I want to see more line drives. I want to see guys make more contact. And you could just tell that was the Blue Jays' philosophy all year long. So his opinion was in there. Dave Hudgens was in there as well, Guillermo Martinez. So if you eliminate a couple of those voices and you just have one primary voice that is helping you out in your hitting strategy, I think that could be beneficial in the long term. But let's move on to the next topic here.
Yes, this was quickly. Jay Jackson. He is officially, he's hit free agency. A lot of people thought that he was under contract for a couple more years, but there was a clause in his contract that he could opt out, and he did. And according to Eric Truden, Blue Jays reporter, he says the right-handed pitcher will get multiple, interest from multiple teams around the league and is a candidate to sign a big league contract. Makes total sense. He's a great human being, and he's a very, very solid pitcher. He is 34, 35 years old. However, if you're a team that's maybe even going for the playoffs, having a veteran like that, or maybe with a younger team, depending on, what his, goals are, whether he wants to win or not, he could be a very, very big asset. But Peter, any quick thoughts on this before we move on to a bit of the bigger one and wrap up here?
Yeah, he was great for the Blue Jays, and they pitched him in a lot of tough spots. The one game that I remember off the top of my head is that Dodgers one where he came in and just shut the door, and that's a great Dodgers team that we're talking about over there. So the moment was never too big for Jay Jackson. He was always smiling. No one had more fun on the baseball diamond than he did, and it was just a great story all year long. I don't know where the Blue Jays would have been without his heroic performances in leverage innings, and he did great. I mean, it wasn't just a great story. He actually was amazing for this team. He had a sub 3 ERA. He got big time outs, and his stuff looked pretty good as well. So there's no doubt in my mind that he could still pitch at the big league level. I don't know where his place is on this Jays team because they do have a lot of depth in that bullpen, but I'm sure a contender would definitely go after him because we saw a lot of pretty bad relievers in this postseason, and a few of them notably on the Texas Rangers as well, who ended up winning the World Series. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to Jay Jackson because his son's doing a lot better in the hospital as well. Their plan is to release him before Thanksgiving. So great news on all fronts there, and hopefully he gets rewarded with a long-term major league contract because one of the great guys in the business and a pretty damn good pitcher too.
Yeah, I suspect maybe a 2 or 3 year deal. Hopefully he can get paid because he hasn't really gotten paid big time yet in his career, so it'd be nice to see that. And one final thing is that the Blue Jays have announced that Whit Merrifield's mutual option has been declined. He's now a free agent. This was $18 million. Pretty expected, but it's interesting that they made it official pretty quickly, so Whit Merrifield's gone. Essentially, the writing's on the wall. He's not going to get re-signed by the Blue Jays. Very, very, very unlikely. Obviously, the mutual option was very, very expensive at $18 million. Made no sense for the Jays to do that, especially with who they have in the pipeline here. But Peter, the Whit Merrifield era is over. It was a pretty solid era. He started off very, very solid last year, ended pretty cold. But what were your thoughts on him as a player? And if you think the Jays should have maybe picked up that $18 million option, I don't think so. That's a very, very expensive option, especially if they're going to be going for some of the bigger fish in the market. Shedding all the money you can get is important. But any quick thoughts on this before I wrap up? It was a fun era and a very, very good trade by Ross Atkins.
Yeah, it was a great trade. I mean, I don't even hear of Max Castillo anymore. Maybe that's because he's on the Kansas City Royals, but it's not like he was some blue chip prospect that got traded for Whit Merrifield. He wasn't. It was a very low level prospect, and we got a guy who became an all-star here, who already was a two-time all-star in Kansas City. And it was just great to have a guy like that. He added a different element to this team with his base stealing, with his contact hitting, didn't strike out too much. And he had some good stretches. And he was a big reason why the Blue Jays were able to make the playoffs in 22. He was a big reason why the Jays were able to make the playoffs this season as well. Obviously, he faltered down the stretch and he kind of fell out of favor when it came to being in the lineup and all that. But yeah, 18 million is a little bit too rich for me. I wouldn't bring him back. I wouldn't even bring him back for 5 million because I just think the Jays have a lot of different options in the middle infield, in the corner outfields as well. So he was a good player while he was here. It was a great trade. He helped out a lot, but I think him going on a podcast right after the season ended and kind of ripping into the management and the front office, it was basically his goodbye message with a little bit more umph as well, and he didn't let the door hit him on his way out. But yeah, he was never going to re-sign here. It was a good 2 years while he was here, and he did a lot of great things in a Blue Jay uniform. So I wish him all the best wherever he ends up landing.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see what other moves the Blue Jays make going forward because they can officially start doing so. It's not tampering or anything. They can now make moves. So hopefully they can make some big ones over the next couple weeks as the winter meetings are fast approaching. But that'll wrap up the video. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to see our video from yesterday, click on your screen right now, and we'll see you tomorrow.